Hello, and welcome to episode 213. 13 our lucky number, the Cincinnati Soccer Talk podcast. This is your host, Brian Weigel, in the new, upgraded, kind of cool Cincinnati Soccer Talk studios in Cincinnati, Ohio. Not Toledo. Sorry, Nick. We're down here now, pal. I'm joined by a great crew today that's going to discuss a whole wide variety of topics. There's been a lot of current news, whether it's Fataya Lashe going down to Orlando or the upcoming schedule release of the MLS Is Now tournament. We're also going to have Alex Stec join us on this program. We are very excited to get into it, and let's welcome in our current cast and crew for this show. The man, the myth, the legend, who has not shaved his COVID-19 beard yet, Tall Paul Barvanchik. How you doing, Tall Paul?
I'm doing well, Brian. How are you doing?
I couldn't be any better, only if I was you, pal. Now, glad to have you, man, all the way down from Louisville still. But we very excited to have you back, man. You've been doing a lot of great writing. Just put a great story on Cincinnati Soccer Talk highlighting the first day of training down in Orlando. So if you're listening, go check that out, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. It's a great story from Paul. We are also joined by our beat writer, who's going to be cranking out a lot of news stories coming up with Orlando and the MLS Is Now tournament. Jeff Wallner. Jeff, how are you, sir?
I'm good. It's good to be back. I've had a few week absence for some family matters, but it's great to be back in the saddle, and hopefully it's like riding a bike and I just hop on and it'll be like old times. So.
Well, we missed you and glad to have you back. And of course, I call it Tall Paul, the man, myth, the legend, but we are really joined by the Cincinnati Soccer Talk man, myth, the legend, the Wolfman. Bill Wolf. How you doing, Bill?
I am doing great. We have got MLS just on the horizon. I can taste it already.
So close. It's so close. And you know what the best part about this was? Nick actually got the cue correct. Good job, producer Nick.
I wasn't even going to give him a hard time. I was so happy.
Oh, we have to do it. You got to do it all times. Of course, we are joined by our producer, our host, or hostess of the mostest, our main man, Nick Suberling. If you want to talk to Nick, just give him a little grief, or you actually want to call into the show, make sure to dial 513-399-KICK, 513-399-KICK on the King's Hammer hotline. You can talk to Nick, BS a little bit with him, and then get on the show and tell us why we're right, wrong, or if you have any other great opinions. Please call in tonight. We'd love to talk to you and hear about anything FC Cincinnati related, whether it's Fataya Lashe's comments, the MLS tournament down in Orlando, or if you have any questions for Alex Stec, please give us a buzz. So, guys, we've had a lot going on this week. Of all the news that we've had, it's just, I guess, the fact that we finally have concrete evidence or concrete times that this tournament's about to kick off. I mean, Bill Wolf, how excited are you that we're actually, super close to this thing?
Oh, super, super excited. I mean, it's phenomenal to see the videos and the photos. The team are training. They've been training up here in Milford recently, but now we see them in Florida. So, all of the doom and gloom naysayers out there that have been worried about Florida and COVID-19 and everything, they're in their bubble now. We hope that's enough, and that the isolation and the safety of the bubble will allow MLS to continue and have this tournament. And right now I'm feeling really positive about things. Zero COVID cases. So the entire team checked in, no problems. That was wonderful to hear. So always that little bit of risk of whether or not they isolated properly before they got down there.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, you might be able to speak to this a little bit. The credit FC Cincinnati for, having all the individual training, having the team training, introducing Jaap Stam, Said Bakati, going down to Florida, and then still having the entire squad together. I mean, how amazing is that they've been able to do this in this time of COVID-19?
They've done a great job in the build up to this, and just in speaking to people close to the club, Jaap Stam has come in, and they've gotten a lot. They got a lot of work done in a very short amount of time, and I think we're really excited to see this roster together. Finally, those two matches were a tease, And now we're going to see this group together for an extended period and under a new manager. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I couldn't be more excited just to see how the team has changed with Yopstom in command. And Paul, you've been able to write a little bit about the team. What are you most excited for in this upcoming 3-match hit we're going to have?
What I'm looking forward to most is just seeing, the positivity that the team has had, turning a new leaf. Everyone seems to be, just looking forward, concentrating on what's now rather than what has happened on the field in the past. So I'm just really excited to see what they can produce.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting. And even people around Major League Soccer, whether it's the Extra Time Radio podcast or even on The Athletic, people are highlighting FC Cincinnati as one of the surprise teams. So we're very excited to check that out. Guys, if you want to weigh in on this, as I mentioned, please call in tonight, 513-399-KICK on the King's Hammer hotline, 513-399-KICK. So we are excited to talk about Orlando, and we finally have somebody that's with the team down in Orlando. We have the Director of Digital Content for FC Cincinnati, Alex Stec, friend of the podcast. Alex, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. A little tired after 2 long days, but doing well. Spirits are high. How are you guys?
Not bad. I heard that heat can take out a lot of your energy, especially if you're wearing all the sweaters I saw the guys in during training today.
That is true. I saw Saeed Bakati, new assistant coach. He actually had on a zip-up today and was trying to convince me that it worked better because the sweat just wicked off of his sleeves. And then he said at the end of the session, I think I'm going to take off the jacket tomorrow. I said,
yeah,
that might be a good idea. Yeah, I know they're trying to actually use that as a tool to get used to it, acclimate to the heat and just have their bodies kind of get accustomed to it, sweat a little bit more. But it is brutal when you're out there. I know it was like 97 yesterday when we arrived, and we were in our room pretty much the whole day after we arrived yesterday. So today was really the first real feeling we got of it at training, and that started about 10 o'clock, 10:30. So it wasn't terrible. I don't think it was the hottest part of the day, but yeah, it definitely zaps you.
Yeah, since you just brought it up, can you kind of walk us through what you and the players experienced on your travel day yesterday? What steps that you or the club and the league actually took to make sure you guys traveled safely and got to Orlando?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been testing very, very frequently out at Mercy Health Training Center. So every, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then there were a few times where you had to do it 2 days in a row. They want to make sure that, there's not like a false test result or anything. So very, very cautious, people wearing masks around the facility, staff wearing them at training. So they've been very smart about it, very careful. And then we all met at MHTC on Monday, early that morning, and we were tested on Friday, on Saturday, met on Monday, took a bus to CVG, and then we chartered out of there. And everyone pretty much had their own row. Like there were 2 buses, so nobody was sitting next to someone else on the bus. On the plane, it was the same situation. Everyone was in their own row, so you're making sure to stay socially distant. So it was pretty much Matt Fizzler and I jumping off the plane or the bus as quickly as possible to get in front of everyone to try and get some pictures and video to keep everyone updated just as the trip was progressing, and give the guys some content to post on their channels as well, because I know they're excited soccer is back too. So we arrived at the hotel and immediately were escorted into testing rooms where they did another swab, and we went from there to our rooms, and we didn't find out the results until this morning. So it allowed me to get some uninterrupted work done, which was nice. But just kind of staring out your window, wondering when you're going to find out. So fortunately, everyone was cleared to participate this morning. So then training started. We met at breakfast. Again, rode 2 separate buses to training, and got on with the day. And first session, they actually only allow you to do a 90-minute session. So that's something I asked Yop about today, just kind of having to shift the program for training, because knowing that you have a shorter window, these guys were putting in 2+ hours in Cincinnati for the last couple of weeks. So they've had to make some adjustments there, but they made the most of it today.
I guess Mickey Mouse didn't didn't greet you guys at the airport.
No, there was no Mickey Mouse. We keep waiting for Red Bull's goalkeeper to show up in that hat, though. I don't know if you guys saw that on Twitter when they announced who our opponents would be, and Jensen, he wore it in our game the second half when we played them earlier this year. So somebody had tweeted that was going to be his cap of choice when we face them again with Mickey Mouse ears on it.
Hey, Alex, it's Jeff Warner. It's nice to hear your voice.
You too, Jeff. How's it going?
It's going well. I was just curious, what's the environment like down there at the complex? Is it hustle and bustle with a lot of people around, or does it feel like you're somewhat isolated? What's the climate right now there?
I would say it does feel pretty isolated. Our entire team is on one floor. And I've seen a couple other players or coaches or staff members from other clubs. But that's just kind of when they're in the lobby. People aren't really congregating together. It's more just you'll see them. I think the other day we were headed up to our rooms and there were players coming back from a training session before we were all cleared. So there have been a couple instances where we've seen other people, but outside of that, it's pretty much just hotel staff, and even that is fairly scarce. And then we'll also see some MLS staff who are just kind of letting you know where to go, where everything is, because it's easy to get lost. I think the first couple of days you have to get used to where each room is, and there are a lot of different places. They've done a good job of keeping everything spread out, definitely distant from one another. So I think all the teams are really on separate floors and then across the two complexes, whether it's the Dolphin or the Swan. So it is kind of a strange feeling where, you go to a meal, you come back to your room, you go to training, come back to your room. There is a media hub that we can work out of. We haven't explored that yet. We'll do a conference call from there tomorrow. So Kuku Damane, Tom Pedersen, we're going to set up a Zoom call. So I'm interested to see the setup for that. MLS has been very accommodating. And we even had the Creators Network out at training for the beginning of the session today. So it was good to kind of see them, interact with them, and just talk to them about how the tournament is, going to play out, how it's going. And it really is where you try and plan as much as possible. We've been discussing, what storylines we want to tell and how we want to tell them. But at the first couple of days, it was kind of, what is our schedule going to be? You have to get a feel for it. And the days are very full, to be honest. You go from one thing to the next. So when you talk about the hustle and bustle, it's not so much hustle and bustle with other clubs, but for us, for our individual club, you try not to dilly-dally or linger, stick around a place. So you show up, you train, you leave. It's all pretty regimented. Same thing with meals. You show up, you eat, you leave. It's not hanging around and socializing for sure.
Hi, Alex. This is Bill Wolf. Obviously, what you're describing, it's pretty, I don't know, maybe isolated isn't the right word as you put it, but, the team is sort of isolated from other teams and such. Mm-hmm. And it maybe isn't the most exciting or fun environment to mingle and talk with other people. But at the same time, there's a lot of us back here in Cincinnati, which would probably give an arm to be in your position to actually literally be there watching the team training. All of us kind of missing soccer at this point. So talk about a little bit, how exciting it is to be one of the few people there, actually able to watch the team train and see them. And then maybe also, your position in digital content and the responsibility you feel trying to communicate that excitement back to the viewers here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it is super exciting. I do feel lucky. It's something, I thought about when this even became a possibility, the chance to go to this tournament. When we talked about which staff members we would send down there, I kind of I almost volunteered because I knew, other people on our staff may not be as comfortable. And I consider myself to be fairly versatile as far as being able to, shoot and edit photos, do social reporting, whatever you really need me to do. So I kind of jumped at the opportunity and said, yeah, I'll go. Not a problem. And my fiance and I are so used to being apart from one another for long periods of time that it wasn't that big of an adjustment for us. So I said, yeah, for sure. I think it would be exciting to be a part of something that, especially Major League Soccer being one of the first leagues to return to action, to have this tournament. And yeah, there are so few people down here that to be a part of it, I do think is exciting. So just one training session here. I mean, even the last couple of weeks at Mercy Health Training Center, it's really exciting what Yapstam has brought to this team, Saeed Bakati as well, and how they're working with the other coaches, Jack Stern, Yolanda May. It's really, really exciting to see this staff come together and how much the level of intensity and focus and work rate has all increased. This team is very exciting to watch right now, and I think they're playing at the highest level they ever have. I know we spoke before the season started and how exciting this group was, how improved they were, and I think that the level has been raised even more from that. So it's been awesome to watch them. You know, even today I was excited to see just the finishing that was happening, but also some great saves were being made. So that back and forth, that competitiveness, the drive where the guys are pushing each other, you love to see that. And that's very much attributed to Yop as well, because he has that competitive, aggressive nature where he wants the guys to not be satisfied with just a mediocre performance. He wants them to hold each other accountable, and he's very intelligent. I like the way he goes about things, his demeanor on and off the field. He's very personable off the field. You know, I walked in the meal room tonight for dinner, and he just asked how I was doing, if I was handling everything, manage everything okay. And I said, yeah, long couple long days, it'll be another long night, but it's not a problem. We're getting it done. So it has been a lot as far as content wise, because, as you said, we're one of the few people that are down here. So of course we want to make sure we're getting as much content and as much exposure for the team as possible. So I laughed today. I saw the carousel you guys put on Instagram. It looked awesome. And I thought, oh my goodness, I haven't even edited the rest of photos from training today. So it's awesome that you guys are using them. And it makes me excited that other people are talking about the team. Kevin Noonan sent us a link yesterday to show us that the local news stations had used the sound bites we captured. So for me, that's really exciting to see that the effort that we're putting in to make sure that we are capturing stuff and making sure that everyone can see what's happening with this team and hear everyone talking about it is super exciting for us and definitely makes the grind worth it. So it has been interesting. I know you guys probably know about Liz Summers, who she amicably left the club last week. We truly, truly miss her, and she brought so much to our team and to the organization as a whole. But she was supposed to go to Orlando, so kind of at the last minute, roles shifted a little bit, and it's awesome that Matt Chidler could be so accommodating and join me down here and help out. So he's been fantastic. But so now I'm trying to take up some PR duties as well, and fortunately Kevin's been helping me back home. But yeah, we want to make sure that everyone is getting what they need, and it looks like everyone is excited back in Cincinnati as much as we are here.
Alex, you mentioned Yapstam and the impact that he's already making in a short amount of time. How have the players, what have you seen in terms of how the players are responding to him, and what type of feedback or reaction have you maybe gotten from the players in terms of Stam and their impressions of him early on?
I think they're great. It was funny, the first day I spoke to Saad Abdul Salam and Brandon Vasquez and asked them straight up, what do you think of Yop? Is he what you anticipated? And their answers kind of made me chuckle a little bit, because they said, he's pretty intimidating. He's a big guy, and he's like he was as a player, and how he was as a player and how intense he is. So yeah, he definitely brings that level of energy and intensity, and you can tell there's this respect that everyone has for him because they know his playing career, but also how he translates that knowledge to being a manager. And that's exactly what I meant when you see him telling the guys, hold yourselves accountable, raise the level, raise the bar, challenge yourselves. Don't play until you feel like stopping, play until the ball goes into the back of the net, continue to shoot, continue to score goals, because at the end of the day, the team that scores more goals is going to win. So in training that he's constantly challenging guys and not just accepting, I know you're tired, I know you've put in a lot of work, but keep pushing. And the guys respect that and they like it. And that's the feedback that I've gotten from every single one of them that I've spoken to. Spencer Ritchie, Kendall Watson. I mean, even today, speaking to Matthew, and Chemislav Titon, like these guys, you can tell that they're tired. They know these sessions are tough, but they're enjoying it and they're happy. And then speaking with Greg Garza, we talked to him on the podcast that just came out today. I loved hearing from him and his insight and what he had to say about Yop. And he even talks about the 2019 team and talks about like how for a while they said, you know, this just isn't fun. Like they don't like losing anymore. They're not rising to the occasion and it's defeating. And he said, this is a different team. So to hear that come from a player and someone who's recognizing it and saying people need to be aware of this, that we are putting in that effort, we are trying, and this overall is going to be a different team, I think will get people excited about the product that they're going to see on the field because these guys are pushing. And I can't even tell if guys are tired or fit or anything because they are pushing so hard. And I'm thrilled to see the level of effort that everyone is putting in each and every day.
Hi, Alex. It's Paul, a new voice here on the podcast.
Hello.
And we've obviously seen some of the digital content that you've put out as the team traveled to Orlando yesterday and for the practice training session that they had down in Orlando. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about what are your plans to cover the trip and what maybe special videos and segments we should look out for.
That's a great question. We were just talking about that today as well. And Charlie Hatch, is back in Cincinnati. So discussing with him what storylines we wanted to explore. And it's always an interesting conversation to have as far as what should be told in video form, what should be a written story. And, one of the examples we brought up today was the substitutions. So you can have 5 substitutions in these games. Sure, you can ask a couple questions about it, but until you actually see it in a match, it may be tough to have a full-on sit-down interview about it or a whole video or something. We talked to Saeed Bakati about it briefly, and it totally depends on the situation of the match. Is it going to be, do you bring in another attacking player? Do you need to be more defensive-minded? Is someone tired? How do you use those substitutions? Do you make more at halftime because it doesn't count against you? So something like that, I think, is better to be written where it can be more explanatory, it can be more hypothetical, and, Charlie can use his soccer knowledge on that. We also talked about, of course, the Hell is Real rivalry game. How do we want to cover that? And Yapsam, it being his first match for FCC, and Charlie actually called you guys out and said that you guys had pointed it out that, we've had all these coaches that their first games or their first win, maybe for Alan Koch's sake, like against an MLS team, or his first match against an MLS team was against the Crew. So there are different storylines that we're exploring, but I think that's the excitement of it right now. Is it's such a fresh start, a new beginning, that the possibilities are unlimited. So there are conversations like Saeed Bakati. He used to be an outside back. Do we have deeper conversations with our current outside backs? What they're learning from him. What about the style? This tournament in particular, something that I'm curious about is talking to Gary Walker, who leads the performance side, and he's brilliant. He came from Manchester United. I'm watching him pass out protein tonight, and that's something that I am so intrigued by, because if we have a game at 10:30 p.m. and you have another game at 9 a.m., how are these guys getting nutrition into their bodies? What is the process for that? And, do they get up at 6 o'clock and eat breakfast? Do you give them a shake? Like, they're going to be tired in the heat. So I think right now they're just taking care of their bodies, getting rest, drinking so much water is so important that that's something we can't take for granted, but I would love to know more about. And I think people would be curious how you manage that in this tournament. So maybe something with Gary Walker. So I don't have any definitive answers for you right now, but these are all just ideas that we've been tossing around, and it is just what do we have the time to do? And then there are these media hubs at the hotel where you book them for availability and book the room for this certain amount of time. Of course, you got to coordinate with the players and make sure it works with the team schedule. So it is just a balance between what we're capturing to send back for media to use, and then what we're capturing here for our own content. So I do think that we will have some exciting pieces to come out, and a little teaser here, I guess. Keep an eye out for additional programming around the game. Facebook Live, Tommy D is going to be involved, so we're going to try and have a pre-game show for the later games, post-game show for the early games. So that'll be something coming your way, and we'll pack that with content too.
So you've kind of bounced around this a little bit, Alex. You've talked about the weather a bit. You've talked about the various times and schedules and the post game and pre game based on time. But obviously there's a really late match versus Columbus. There's a really early match versus Atlanta. Weather involved in that, and even how the players are going to respond at different times of day. I mean, which game are you kind of excited to watch? Do you like the late night stuff, or are you kind of interested to see how the team does early morning?
I almost feel like the 8:00 game is going to be the best setup as far as timing wise, because that's what is most regular to these guys. I feel like 10:30 is so late. I know and this may be different for the guys. They may react differently. When I was a player, to have a late game, and even from my standpoint now, it's like you get up early, you work out, you eat breakfast, and you get ready for the day, you study match notes, and then your adrenaline is just go, go, go for so long. I think these guys at this level, they're professionals. They will rest when they need to. They'll know not to tire their legs out, but you can't oversleep and make yourself tired, but you should rest during the day, get your legs moving a little bit. But that's a long day to just be sitting around not doing anything and just having to keep your mind right and get mentally focused and not be tired by the time the game comes around. I do think the morning one will be the biggest challenge. That's just early for a game, and that's what I was talking about as far as when you have to get up and what kind of sustenance do you put in your body that's going to fuel you for 90 minutes in this heat and humidity.
That quick.
I don't know. And I think the toughest thing is the adjustment. If you had several late games, kind of like when the team travels out to the West Coast, you may travel a few days early to get your body accustomed to it, to the time change, whatever the situation is. But this is not, you don't have time to adjust because you have one match at 10:30 at night, and then, the next one is at 9 in the morning. So I think that will be a big challenge for sure, just kind of switching up the times on the team and not having that consistency. I think that will be a big challenge for this group for sure.
And Alex, for you personally, was there any, or is there any nervousness in terms of in the midst of a pandemic still ongoing, traveling and being around that complex, or is it just the protocols that have been put in place by MLS, as stringent as they are? Does that kind of help with the comfort level? How is it for you personally?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not fearful at all, and I think it is because of the protocols that are in place. I mean, we're wearing masks when we're outside of our rooms, when we go to meals, when we go to the training facility. We're wearing a mask. At this point, we know constantly wash your hands. There's Purell. Even at meals, you get a box, and then you're sliding it under a glass panel. And they're scooping food into your box. So everyone's not going through a buffet line, grabbing the spoons, grabbing the handles of anything. The silverware is, plasticware, so it's disposable. Pretty much everything that they're doing allows you to kind of feel safe, and there's not that high risk that everyone is touching the same thing. And just the testing itself. I mean, I feel very lucky that we're able to get tested so frequently, and that's allowed me to feel, okay, well, I know I'm not positive, and I'm not interacting with anyone outside of the team. I'm not going anywhere outside of where the team is going or my room. So, I feel like at that point it's tough to contract it, and I think that's been a great part so far of the tournament, and that they've been very smart about it, is just being very careful. And we have wet wipes in our room, and they gave us a box of masks that actually they're the cutest masks I've seen yet, that have the SCC badge all over the front. So masks that you're wearing every day, you change it out, and then each morning we have to take like a wellness test, and you submit if you've had any symptoms, if you feel anything, and you have to send in your temperature as well. So they're definitely taking the right precautions that I feel completely safe.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming on here. We do have one listener question that we'd like to give to you before we head out for the evening. This is from Joe Pipitone. I wonder what the players and staff do for fun or to unwind with as regimented the compound seems to be so far. Do you have a social area? Is it only each team alone on the floor that they limit, or can they get out of their room? Is this going to lessen in the future?
Good question. Very good question. There is a lounge on our floor where I believe there's like a ping pong table. I haven't really gone in there to see what else is there. I kind of leave that for the players to hang out and just kind of chill with each other. But for me, I guess it's too early to say because it's just been work, honestly. I am hoping to get outside and run or work out. That's a big one for me as far as fun and free time. I know that sounds pretty bad, but the TV does have Netflix, so that's a plus if, we get free time to be able to do that. And I do think that the staff itself, if we want to hang out with one another, we're not sitting right next to each other. So I think everyone feels safe enough to do that. And this is such a great group of people that honestly hanging out with them for a couple hours is entertainment enough for me. And we have some cards too. And then of course there's always, whatever you can order, drinks or anything if you want, have them brought to the hotel. So that's a possibility too. I know some people ship some stuff down. So we're well taken care of.
Well, that's great to hear. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. We'll make sure, guys, to check out Alex's great content, including the Orange and Blue Review podcast on your favorite podcast network. They had a great show this week with Greg Garza as their guest, so go check that out. From one Bobcat to another, Alex, thank you so much for taking your time this evening.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys let me know if you have any questions or have any specific requests for content, we'll get it to you. But thank you so much. I appreciate the time and love the show.
Awesome. Be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, that was Alex Stec, Director of Digital Content for FC Cincinnati. Thank you so much, Alex, for taking your time down there in Florida and joining us this evening. We all definitely appreciate it. It's definitely that time of the show to give a big shout out and thanks to our tremendous supporters. Of course, King's Hammer and Tim Bronsel, Tom Rose, Matt Adamchick, Mike Hudson, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Kathleen Francis, Matt Imholt, Matthew Long, Joe Coling, and Tara Mullins. Thank you so much for your support. And to learn more on how you can support CST, head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. Guys, if you want to call in, weigh in on any recent news, any subjects, whether that's been the stories that we've seen with the racism accusations around the club. If you have any questions on Orlando, please call in. Give us your thoughts. We want to hear from you. We want to hear all your impact and your thoughts on what you have with our great club and maybe ideas that you'd like to see improve. So please go check that out. Weigh in 513-399-KICK on the King's Hammer hotline. Speaking of the King's Hammer hotline, we're actually going to go to our first caller of the evening, Max Ellerby. Max, welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk. We are so glad to have a great supporter like yourself calling in this evening.
How's it going, guys?
Wonderful, man. What do you want to weigh in on tonight?
Yeah, I wanted to call in and talk about FC Cincinnati's recent statement about systemic racism and what they're doing to take their part in improving that situation here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And guys, I don't know if you want to weigh in on it. And I'm sure you have some great thoughts on this too, Max. But the statement you're referring to is from the club and Jeff Birding. about being vigilant on the racism that exists in our community, as well as the show of support that the ownership group is committing to the local community. $250,000 additional funds that are going to be poured into different organizations throughout the Black community in the West End is more specifically. What did you feel like that was a good gesture originally, Max?
Yeah, I mean, FC Cincinnati has, I'll say, has been somewhat differentiated in the amount of support they've given to the community. Obviously, part of that is because they've had a disproportionate effect on that community, especially moving into the West End, which is, generally speaking, a Black neighborhood. There's reasons for that, but I think that this is a great start for the club. I will say that I personally, as a supporter, have committed to being involved in those continuing efforts. And obviously the nation as a whole is going through a re-education on, what we can do as a collective, as, Americans, to really acknowledge, I'll say, the struggle of Black Americans in this country and some of the systemic racism that we have faced. And indeed, as members of this nation in Cincinnati, that we have faced as citizens of this city and fans of this club. I've been on the record personally, and maybe some of the listeners have seen some of the takes I've had about some of the things that have been said about players, about some of the takes that have taken place, specifically around our Black players, that I have personally not appreciated. I think that there's a renewed perspective and an appreciation of the struggle that, our Black players face and our people in our community, that especially with current events is given new light, and people are more open to educating themselves and moving forward in a positive light. And I think the club is, taking that opportunity to do the same. I think that, as an outspoken supporter of the club, and someone I'll admit that has a pretty direct line in with Jeff Birding, I have said to him multiple times, that we have an issue within the fans, and that we have an issue with, maybe some of the implicit bias. I actually wrote an article about implicit bias within the fandom. It's not an issue that's specific to FC Cincinnati. It's not a specific issue with Cincinnati itself. It's something that the nation faces, and we are in an unprecedented time where there is renewed focus and willingness from the nation.
Oh, did we lose Max there? I think we might have lost Max there. Subes, you might be able to check that, see if you can bring him back. I do think that Jeff Warner, you might have had a comment or thought on that.
That was extremely well said. There isn't really a whole lot to add to what Max said, other than
hey, this is Max again. I just
there he is.
Go ahead, Max.
Go ahead, Max. Yeah.
Hey, sorry about that. What was the last thing you heard?
I think we heard almost all of it. Sorry about that.
You were focused a lot on this is an issue within the nation and not just Cincinnati and not just this club, and that was kind of where you were winding. Obviously, Cincinnati has a long history of racial disparity and turmoil. I'll say I'm mixed. I'm half Black, half white. The city is half Black, half white. I know intimately the challenges that we face as a city and indeed as a nation. And, the club hasn't been perfect. And I'll say that I have been vocal within the club. I have a disproportionate ability to be able to sit in on some meetings and talk to Jeff Birding and talk to the club and raise my concerns as a Black American to say, these are things that concern me. These are things that I think they should change. I listened to the entirety of the podcast that Fatai Alashe and Joe Jiao were on, and I echo some of their statements, and I have before. And I'll say that, my struggle as a Black fan, which is unfortunately unique within the FC Cincinnati community, often we're met with denigration. I didn't see this. I didn't see this happen.
I don't feel this way. It's not prominent. But now we have an unprecedented time where people are listening, and people are taking our concerns seriously. And I would say with the club, they are, like the rest of the nation, looking at these problems with new eyes and new perspective and new openness. And I will do what I can personally to hold the club accountable, to make sure that the promises that they make are actually going to be carried through. And I actually was able to discuss with the club some of the challenges that we face as Black supporters, and hopefully have some things coming out soon that will lend a voice to us and the Black players and all players of color, to make sure that the club makes good on their promises, that they understand that the challenges that we face are not unique, and they are not new, and they are ongoing. And, you know, we as FC Cincinnati fans, especially in the newness of the club, have an unprecedented opportunity to make real change here, to make change locally, and represent our city and our brand nationally. So I'm excited to get to work. I will personally be holding the club accountable for their promises, where they say the money's going. And again, hopefully I can announce some initiatives going forward that will lend voices to those that were previously unheard, and really make some progress here.
Yeah. And speaking of holding the club accountable, and also I think this lends to the club supporting players. This is just coming out right as you called in here, Max. The club is releasing a statement saying that we stand firm with our players and our supporters against racism. It has no place in our organization, and it will not be tolerated. The individual with the racist tweet directed at our players last evening, Monday night, will never be permitted to attend another FC Cincinnati match. Another quote was, "There is no place for racially offensive words or actions in our club. Appropriate action will be taken to ensure those with such sentiments are prohibited in our club." What do you think of that, Max?
I think that people who think that they are emboldened to speak against players, especially against, things that pertain to their race, other supporters that pertain to their race, are cowards. And I'm proud that the club is taking steps to reaffirm that that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable to me. It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to my very existence. And I am proud that the club is taking these steps, and I expect that for this to continue, and understand that to echo the sentiments of the club, there's no place for this in our fan base. Understand that Cincinnati is a place where all should be able to go about their lives and celebrate this club with freedom and pride. And I will not stand for any bigotry, any racism, any phobias of any kind. And this club is for all supporters. So I'm proud that the club took this step, and I want this to stand as a warning to other fans that this will not be tolerated. And personally, me, Max Ellerby, if I have any inkling that these values are being violated, that I'll take every step that I can to make sure that there's no place for that person in this club. And, F around and find out is what I'm saying.
Well, wonderful, Max. I do appreciate you calling in, good sir. You're a great leader in our fan base, and one of the good guys. So thank you so much for calling in, and we'll be talking again soon. Thank you, Max.
Thanks for the opportunity, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, buddy. Jeff, I think you had some additional comments to weigh in.
As I said before, there really isn't much to add. That was fantastically stated by Max. I will say that I think FC Cincinnati has a tremendous opportunity here to be a leader in our community in terms of improving race relations and improving the overall racial environment in our city. First of all, soccer is the most diverse sport in the world, and it's had its issues with racism worldwide. And we're seeing action being taken in other parts of the world But FC Cincinnati in particular is making a major investment in the inner city of Cincinnati. I think they're serious about being good neighbors in the West End. I think they are serious about bringing about positive economic development to the inner city in Cincinnati. Now's their opportunity to be the leader and step to the forefront. The Reds are going to do their thing. The Bengals are going to do their thing, but FC Cincinnati is making a tremendous investment, just not just monetarily, but culturally, to the inner city of Cincinnati, and in particular the West End. If they do it right, they come out of this being a champion for this city and a champion for diversity in this city, and a leader in race relations for this city. There's a tremendous opportunity, and perhaps they've learned from the way that they dealt with the Ranyans situation. And apparently they still have work to do, but we all have work to do. Every organization in this country, be it sports or whatever, needs to be better in terms of race relations and promoting equality. So, but FC Cincinnati has a great opportunity here, and as Max said, let's hold them accountable for that. Let's set the expectation high for this club, and say, do it. These are your words, and words are fine, and we're hearing a lot of words right now. But let's see what you can accomplish constructively in this city. So it'll be interesting to watch, but I think as a fan base, I think we, as Max said, we should hold them accountable for that, because that opportunity is there, and they're saying all the right things right now. And I think I said a similar thing in the wake of the Ranyans ouster. They said all the right things. Now do all the right things.
Mm-hmm. So let's set the stage and rewind a little bit on how all this information, the situation is kind of come out. So Fatai Alashi and Joe Zhao went on the Backyard Footy podcast hosted by soccer player Hugh Roberts, who I believe plays for Charlotte in the USL. He was joined by several other high-profile Black professional soccer players: Sean Johnson, goalkeeper, U.S. men's national team; London Woodbury, Carlton Belmar, Brandon Miller, George Davis of Louisville, Kyrie Shelton, basically talking about what it was like to, be growing up as a Black player and playing soccer in America, is also about, the supporters, how we can improve, how we can include, how we can educate. And Fatai elaborated on his time on this podcast about Ranyans, basically how disappointed he was in the club, and how that he really wasn't sure how the club was trying to get their diversity programs in place and what it really would achieve. In discussing that with Jeff Birding, he was expressing his displeasure about Ranyans. And in his words, it kind of got brushed under the rug. They let him design. So we had fans that were blowing us up like N-word this, N-word that, calling us all types of stuff, as they did something was wrong in that situation. And he felt that the club did nothing to back them. And basically they weren't given a reason on why he resigned. And of course the club didn't tell anybody what happened. So he was very displeased on how Jeff Birding and the club really didn't back them. And I think that this message tonight shows that the club has learned their lesson and is making some changes. Now, Bill, what did you think about those Alashi statements? And do you feel that, his words, his opinions are accurate, that, we are just not doing enough to help, the race argument as well as our Black players?
Well, first off, I think to say whether his words are accurate or not is not really the question. I mean, that's how he feels, right? So whether or not you want to sit down and nitpick on, whether the club did this or he did this or they said this or he said that is unimportant. That's how he feels. And I think that's part of what Max alluded to when he says that, this country, this city, sports in general, this club in general, or in specifically, are looking at things with new eyes and realizing that, all the things that they think they're doing, and they think they're making positive steps. You write a check to the FC Cincinnati Foundation to support programs that tackle racism. Great. But is that effective? Does it make the players feel like you're taking this serious? So where the club may think that it's doing something correctly, the question is whether or not they're actually accomplishing the goal that they hope they're accomplishing. And Fatai would say no. And I think that's a valid complaint on his part, because it's how he feels. I think, it gets down to a question of whether or not the club can communicate properly with him, whether there was things going on that he wasn't aware of. And certainly, those things all play in, but I think, from a standpoint of just what the club's doing, obviously it needs to do something different to make sure that players like Fatai don't feel like they're, on the fringe looking in. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, Paul, what is your take on, what us supporters can do to support, the work, support Alashe, Zhao, Kendall Waston? They all express different stories about how they were had experienced hardships in the relationships with authority, whether it's police officers. With Kendall Waston, his story that he wrote on, I believe, it's MLSsoccer.com or FC Cincinnati. What do you think that we can do to help this situation, educate maybe?
Well, I think the first step that we can take as fans is, most importantly, just say we have the players' backs. Like you said, Jeff, perception is key of the situation that's going on, and it doesn't really matter what he said or what she said, the back and forth. It's just the matter of fact is Fatai Alashe felt that he was on the outs, that he was not being included. So I think that's the first thing that we as fans and management can do, is just to say, we got your backs. We're going to listen to you. No more of this. We're going to listen to you, but maybe just sweep it under the rug, or we're going to listen to you, but that's all we're going to do. We're going to listen to you. And then secondly, we're going to take action with you. So as part of the commitment to diversity efforts in the West End, that the $250,000 is going to, that's great. But also, taking into account what these players have to say, what Fatai, Kendall Watson have to say about that. What efforts do they think would be valuable? Because they're the ones that have gone through these experiences. So I'm going to give it to them to say they probably know how we can best help diversity efforts and race relations down in the West End, how we can make a more significant impact rather than just throwing money at these organizations that, while they may do good, without that direction or without that purpose, may not actually accomplish a lot. And then those words that, while they have significance while spoken, may not have a lot of significance when the final action occurs.
Yeah, these are all great points. And listeners, I don't want you to feel like that we're glossing over this. As Cincinnati Soccer Talk is an organization, we're going to do better to cover stories like this, to actively question the club and pursue the truth as best we possibly can. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of additional time, to research and find, more information to get the truth out to you guys. So we will cover this more. You might not see all the information on Cincinnati Soccer Talk right away. We are trying to discover every single thing, get each of our players' opinions as best we possibly can communicated to the public. So please, we are going to really dive down into this as best we possibly can, and is also respect the privacy of all the individuals involved. So please check out CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. We're going to use our platform as best we can. And I know with this show especially, we've been covering a lot of serious things. We are trying to provide, a platform where you can have an escape from your troubles in your world, but also, we're going to do the best we can to cover these topics appropriately. So please give us feedback if you have anything. Like to do a quick shout out to a specific player that addressed the situation of the racist comments last night directed towards Alashe, and that was a new goalkeeper, a friend of the show, Bobby Edwards. I'm going to read you his tweet, and I thought it was a great comment. Cincinnati's motto is Junta Juvent, a Latin phrase translating to strength and unity. Though you failed to grasp that concept despite claiming to be an FCC fan, I can assure you that we as players haven't. So you may support FC, but we certainly don't support you. I thought that was a very good, honest take, and basically not showing that those comments are accepted by the rest of the players on the club. So good on you, Bobby. We really appreciate that, and keep doing what you do. So thank you so much, Bobby. Going on to before we wrap up the show, it's almost 10 o'clock here. We're going to go a little bit late. I'd like to talk about MLS is back a little bit more. The schedule has been dropped. Finally, I guess we'll say we may mention it with Alex Stec earlier. The first match for FC Cincinnati on June 11th will be at 10:30 at night versus Columbus Crew SC, the Hell is Real Derby, 10:30 on FS1. That is after actually the first group match of Atlanta United versus New York Red Bulls at 8 p.m. on Fox. Follow that Saturday up with a Thursday morning match, July 16th, 9 a.m. versus Atlanta United on the big one, the ESPN. That night will be followed by Columbus Crew versus New York Red Bull on FS1. Then the last group matches will be on separate dates. July 21st, Atlanta United versus Columbus at 8 p.m. on TUDN. I'm not sure what that is. Is that Univision, perhaps? And then Wednesday night, final group match, July 22nd, FC Cincinnati versus New York Red Bull, 8 p.m. on ESPN. Paul, poor Columbus gets no ESPN matches, man. I guess nobody loves them, not even the national audience.
Yeah, I mean, well, what is there to really love? I mean, if we're being completely honest, the only reason we're talking about that team up north is because we have to play them once. So, I'm glad to see that we have 2 ESPN matches and they have 0. I think ESPN has finally, figured out which team in Ohio is better. So I'm glad to see that they're coming around.
Very good. Now, Bill, what do you think about us actually playing the last group match? Do you think that's advantageous to us?
I think it's going to depend on the strategy that Stom has. Is he focused on this tournament? Is he focused on the regular season? I mean, obviously, if he's focused on the regular season, then he really doesn't care what the result is on Tuesday. All he cares about is winning games, and he's going to go after this match to win it. If he's focused on winning the tournament and, when we are, ahead in the standings and know that we can coast through this group stage, then, he may want to play some reserve players or some players who are more rested, so that we're ready for the elimination rounds. Again, it comes down to kind of his strategy on this. So.
Now, Jeff, what do you think? Do you believe that we have an advantage, maybe having our initial matchup versus Columbus, first, versus having to wait and play them later on in the tournament? Or would you rather just get that out of the way?
I think, honestly, I think this club's just going to be ready to play. It's interesting, and talking to Greg Garza a few weeks ago, and he was kind of downplaying the whole thing because I asked him, do you consider the MLS is back tournament as an opportunity for FC Cincinnati to be their maybe a breakout moment for this new roster and a new manager? And he really downplayed it, and he essentially said, no, it's too soon. We would have only had a few weeks with the new manager. We still have a new roster. We've only played 2 matches together, so no, we're not expecting anything. But I honestly think, and Alex kind of touched on this earlier, where I think this club wants to prove something. I think this club wants to prove that this isn't the same old FC Cincinnati. This is a new roster, and we only had 2 matches to really see them. We saw them against pretty good opponents, and I didn't think they looked bad. They certainly looked more dynamic up front with Lacadia and Kubo, and now we've had a little bit more time with this group together. Stom's had a little bit of time. How will his defensive mentality how will the players kind of adapt to that? What will we see different in that area on the pitch? I think this club's going to be excited to play, and I really think that they're going to go out. There's no pressure. There's absolutely nothing to lose, but I think they want to prove something. So I don't think they really care who they play, to be honest.
Well, it's going to be definitely an exciting 3 weeks span for FC Cincinnati. Now, I'm going to ask all three of you, which game are you most excited for? So I'm going to go with Paul first. Since you're the youngest, pal, you get to answer. What game are you most excited for?
You know, there's a variety of things that go into this decision, but I'm going to go with the less popular answer here. I'm going to go with Atlanta. One, because it's not at 10:30 in the evening. I'm young, but my friends joke that my bedtime is 9 o'clock, and they're pretty right. I'm actually up past my bedtime right now. So the fact that I can get into this match, a little bit more is nice. And while Columbus is the rival, I think the expectation, definitely amongst fans from what I've heard, is that, we should play pretty well against them, where Atlanta's more the big bad wolf. So if we can get a result against Atlanta, I think that sets us up not really well just for the tournament, but it keeps building that momentum. We got to get old Mo on our side. And if we can get that with a result, then we can go into New York and maybe get another result there and somehow, get ourselves to these knockout rounds.
Yeah. I couldn't get past your 9 o'clock bedtime there. Your fiance must be wearing you out, pal. Bill Wolf.
Got to be careful with that one. Girlfriend, not fiance yet.
Oh, okay.
Got to be careful. You never know. She might be listening.
Wow, Brian. Breaking news from Brian Weigel.
Subes will help you buy the ring. Bill Wolf. Which game?
Right, do we check ages with me and Jeff? Is Jeff older than I am?
Hopefully not.
Never mind. So this is not past my bedtime. And I will take, at some level, the easy answer. I will say that I'm most excited for Columbus, but maybe for an even more obvious reason than the fact that it's a rivalry. I'm excited for Columbus because it's the first game, and I'm just anxious to get started. Obviously, I'm going to be watching on day one with the Florida Bowl or whatever we want to call it, with the Miami versus Orlando game, just because it's going to be the first game. But yeah, for our stage, for our team, this is our time back in the pitch, and I'm ready for it. And game one is the one I'm excited for because it's game one.
Jeff Wallner.
Bill kind of stole my answer, but yeah, I will be excited I'm already excited about that first match, and I'll be excited all day that day.
It's going to be a long day.
Yeah, it is going to be a long day. My biggest concern that day is when do I start pre-gaming for a 10:30 match? Is it reasonable to start any earlier than 7, or should I just start at 5 and be done? I don't know. But no, I'll just be excited to see this club play. I'm really intrigued to see what they're going to show in these matches. So I'll be looking forward to that 10:30 match.
Wonderful. And Paul, I'm a little mad at you because that's Atlanta. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see how we stacked up for 2 of the best players in the league, see if our defense can handle it. And then, we played them already. So I want to see if we can have any better result this time. So going to be very
great minds think alike, Brian.
There you go, pal. There you go. Guys, thank you so much for those answers. Really quick, some news, and then we'll get into our listener questions with Nick Suberling reading those to us. Looks like our best buddy, Travis Grimes, is reporting that several players are not with the club right now down in Orlando. Hassan Ndam is on loan with Miami. Ray Ortiz is with Charlotte. Ben Lunt, I believe, is with Lou City. Darren Maddox is unknown, and now he's reporting Rashawn Daly is going to be going to Las Vegas on loan. So we have a spot open on the roster. So we had 30 spots. Now we have 29. We'll see if any moves are made to free up one of those 1 through 20 senior spots, and maybe a potential addition coming to FC Cincinnati. So stay tuned on that. We'll see if we have any more information. You guys saw Sandwich Gate out there. Bill, have you ever paid $65 for a sandwich?
No, and not one that looked like that either. The banana was probably worth at least 20. So.
For what's worth, guys, Paul Tenorio did report that was just the quarantine menu, but still $65 for a roast beef sandwich, a small cup of potato salad. I didn't see the chips. Chips. A drink and bananas were $65.
Healthy only, and sterilization was 90% of the cost.
Oh, there you go. The delivery fee. We'll call that an extra delivery fee. The gloves and the mask and all that. Yeah, crazy. Most of you guys, I don't know if you've seen that. That's not a standard thing. I know there's a lot of reaction about it, but there's a lot of banquet style atmosphere that the clubs will be experiencing. There's 4 sit-down restaurants that the players will be able to go to. They'll also be able to have, I believe, DoorDash ordered in. We'll see. So I hope it's not all doom and gloom. Yes, it's unfortunate that they paid a astronomical fee for that roast beef sandwich, and I think I definitely think that looked better than the ham and cheese sandwich that they put out there.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we heard Alex talking about that, right? The banquets where you didn't just reach in and use all the same utensils. You had to kind of stick your box, as she called it, through a glass window, and they put the food on there for you. But obviously she wasn't getting a $65 sandwich. She was getting much better than that. So good to hear.
Yeah. Good to hear. All right. Well, this is one of my favorite news segments of the show. This is when we get our main man, the boss himself, Nick Suberling, involved again, and he's going to read some listener questions that we've got. If you ever want to ask us a question, I know Coach Goff always asks for questions for his Talking Tactics show. Please check that out. He has some great analysis with Yop Stom. Please check out our Twitter feed every Monday or Tuesday when we ask for questions, and please feel free to send in anything that you have. So, without further ado, Nick, lead it off, sir.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good show as always. Appreciate it. This first question is from Dr. Hodenbaugh. Schedule congestion means we're bound to see some squad rotation in Orlando. Which player are you most excited to see get a chance to shine?
I think there's also a little addition. You're not allowed to say De Jong or Peterson.
I was going to add that after you. Okay, fine.
Okay.
We'll make it hard for you.
I'll make it hard for me.
You 4. Sorry.
Yeah.
No
Paul,
De Jong
I'm throwing you under the
Patterson.
bus. I'm throwing Paul under the bus. He can answer this one first.
I'm most excited to see the depth at our defensive backs. So I would probably say Andrew Gutman would be the player that I'm most interested to see. Especially if he comes in with the amount of subs that we have, now that we have an increased amount, I bet he might see a little bit more action. So I'm interested to see how he plays in this tournament.
Okay. Jeff?
I'm going to go with a somewhat obvious answer, and that would be Jurgen Locadia. We saw kind of the ceiling that he has in those first couple of matches. So looking forward to seeing him in Orlando.
Bill?
I'm not sure I have a single answer for that. To me, I'm very interested in the midfield in general. And I know that it kind of gets into De Jong a little bit, but I think when you look at that whole group there, right, you have Majunjin, you have Amaya, you have Cruz, you have De Jong, and potentially some other players like Stanko, Alache, but those 4 specifically, obviously all 4 probably aren't going to be playing at any point in time. So who's going to be our main 3? Does Frankie, for instance, as the youngest player, does he not get as much time? Does he rotate in? So I'm very curious to see how those 3 pair up and how they rotate throughout the entire 3 games.
Those
4.
Yeah. My answer is Harris Madunanen. I want to see how he factors into the midfield, just like you said. Is he going to be somebody that can be that guy that provides the defensive pressure, or is he going to have to, maybe slide out for Frankie or for Alan Cruz? So I'm excited to see how he plays. I mean, he's an expensive addition for FC Cincinnati this offseason, and I expect a lot of things out of him, and hopefully he can impress.
I'm going to break the rules and say De Jong. Haven't seen him play. Come on, man. Got to see it.
That was going to be my answer.
Yeah. This next one's from Craig Hunter. Which local beer pairs the best with each group stage matchup? Wow, this should really be a question for Talking Tactics, right?
It really should.
I have answers for this.
Oh, good.
Anybody want to go first? Or you want me to lead off?
Yeah, I will say Coke Zero goes with the first game. Coke Zero goes with the second game. Coke Zero goes with the third game. Oh, sorry.
Paul, you're young. What do you drink?
See, I'm not a beer guy. The only thing, especially being in Louisville, I don't have access to all the great craft beer up in Cincinnati. The only thing we really have is Rheingeist, and I'm pretty bland, so I usually go with Cheetah. So that's the only thing. But kind of to build off what Bill said, I'm gonna say Diet Mountain Dew, probably for especially the Columbus game and the Atlanta game, because I'm gonna need one of them to wake me up and then the other one to keep me up. So,
Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely a beer guy, and I actually just stocked up at the Growler Stop today, so this is good timing for this question. I'll probably go with a 3 Floyd Zombie Dust for the first match, just because I'll be a zombie by the time that game ends. Anything Mad Tree, I'm kind of a shill for Mad Tree, but I did stock up on some 50 West Doom Pedal. Maybe we'll go for that one for the Atlanta match. I don't know. Yeah, but typically some good local craft beer.
Here?
What's that?
I said, are we still talking beers here?
Zombie
beers here. Dust.
Zombie Dust. I've never actually. The only one that you said there that I had was Doom Pedal, and for some reason I just can't do that one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not my cup of tea. But I did put a little thought into this, and I'm going to cheat a little bit as well. So for Columbus, I'm going to go with the Fig Leaf Star Crusher IPA, almost a 9%er there. So. If it's going good, I'm going to be drinking and feeling great and happy and just going to get obliterated. And if we're losing, I'm going to get obliterated and feel really sad. So we'll see what happens there. I think I'm going to start the Atlanta game with Voltage Vodka. It's a distillery out of March 1st brewery company on the east side. They do a Voltage Vodka. I'm going to mix that with some OJ, kind of get a little morning flavor going. And then for New York Red Bulls, we always need more orange than blue. Always need more orange than blue. So I'm going to go with Orange Agave Blonde from Municipal Brew Works. Great orange, flavorful beer there. Subs, what are you going to do? What flavor Capri Sun you drinking?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm on a little bit of a Gatorade kick, so I got to cut back on those. The calories are starting to add up, right?
They make zeros, pal.
Yeah, but then, let's move on. This last question is from JB. When does Mario Götze arrive at FC Cincinnati?
Well, we're going to try to get that additional international spot, right?
Yeah,
hopefully.
I guess they're going to need that, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'd love to see him. His season, just ended, right?
This is true.
And to be clear, it actually said at FC Cincinnati, not at Cincinnati, because if he arrived at Cincinnati, it really wouldn't do us much good.
I don't think his girlfriend or fiance or wife or whoever it is wants to sit on a boat on the Ohio River. I think she wants to sit on a boat in Miami or LA. So
yeah. We did get this YouTube comment from Smutton. He or she says psychopathy for the win. You guys want to explain what that is?
IPA?
Mad Tree Psychopathy is an IPA and a very good IPA. Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to shout out that I did not do downtown brews. I did around the city. Got to spread the love.
You're a suburbs kind of guy, bro.
Hamilton, Blue Ash, and then oh shoot, I always forget it. Monroe. Yes, those are the 3 areas. The breweries.
I could add some rum to my diet or my Coke Zero if we want.
There you go. We can do. I mean, I cheated. I did Voltage Vodka.
Yeah,
I was about to say, being from Kentucky, just give me some bourbon and some Coke, and let's just get started at 9 in the morning.
Hey, that March 1st makes an awesome bourbon. I think I told you about it. It's Sycamore bourbon. They have they put the bourbon in one of their stout barrels. It's really good. Gotta try it. I'll hook you up. All right, Soups, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you chiming in, and thanks for handing over these host reins, because it hasn't been difficult to generate content for these shows at all over the past 4 months. So thanks, pal, for throwing me under the bus there.
No problem. I'm glad I could help. Thanks for having me on.
Love it. All right, guys, as I mentioned earlier, please make sure to check out all of our content on CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com, as well as our other podcast out of the Cincinnati Soccer Talk brand. We have Talking Tactics with Coach Goff. That should be dropping later this week, describing everything coming back with our opponents with MLS is Back tournament. March to Match Day with Boston Razzle Dazzle Brazzle and the evil twin Brad Weigel will be back fast and furious over the next couple weeks. Go make sure to check that out. Coach Goff, his podcast is on his separate feed, but the March to Match Day, I believe, will be on the Cincinnati Soccer Talk feed. So make sure to download all those. Guys, it's time for our final thoughts before we turn the page to match week. So let's start with you, Paul. What's your final thought for the evening?
I really appreciate being on again, Brian. Third time now, first live show, so kind of getting the hold of it a little bit. Excited, glad I could make a couple people laugh, even if it was just you three. But my final thought, just to make it a little bit serious, and then I'll make it a little fun, is that I'm ready to learn. And, whatever that involves in terms of, how to help with diversity efforts in the West End, how to help make players feel more welcome in the community. I'm ready to learn, and I'm ready to listen to experiences that help me learn. And then I'm ready for sports. I think while sports are a distraction, sports also can do a lot of good with helping these sorts of things when done correctly. So I'm looking forward to seeing how sports can help with that. But I'm just ready to see Jurgen Locadia also put a ball in the back of the net. It's been nearly 4 months.
Good words, pal. Thanks for joining us, man. We gotta get you a mic. Gotta get you a big boy mic here soon, right? Love it. Good job, man. Let's go to Jeff Wallner. Jeff.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out my T-shirt. I don't know if everyone can see it, but it says "No al racismo," which is "No to racism" in Italian. Last year, last transfer window, Everton signed a 19-year-old striker named Moise Kean from Juventus. While he was at Juventus, unfortunately, even as a teenager, received a lot of just brutal racist abuse at visiting stadiums, and didn't really get a whole lot of support from his club. When Everton signed him, Marcel Brands, our director of football, brought in his mom along with Moise Kean and said to them, "We're going to take care of you here." The fan base caught wind of it, and prior to the first match at Goodison Park, they unfurled a large banner, and you can't really probably see my shirt, but it has Moise Kean's a face on it, and it said "No al racismo." It got so much attention and so much reaction from fans, from media, all over the world, that the supporters group, the County Road Bobblers, those are some of my friends in Liverpool. They printed T-shirts and started selling T-shirts with the proceeds going to efforts to deal with racism in English football. So I just wanted to point that out, and we're all just trying to be better, and that includes myself.
Beautiful, beautiful. Good words, Jeff, and thanks for joining us again. And I know you've had some stuff going on the past couple weeks, but we are blessed to have you, and wish the best to you and yours. On to the Wolfman. I need to set him up better. Bill Wolf.
He fell asleep. That was a great story, Jeff, by the way. Thank you. I would, before I get into maybe just a positive, happy thing at the end here, I'll just add to that a little bit and say, since we're all discussing this challenging topic at some level, I think it's on all of our backs to make this better, right? I mean, we look towards the club, we look towards the city, we look towards the government, whatever leadership to make a difference, and that's great. But it's really all of our responsibilities to make this great. So, if there's any awareness of racism going on, right, then we all need to stand up and say something about it. And when it comes to FC Cincinnati, I will say personally that if we see a player being harassed, as we have been, aware of one last night, we saw the club took direct action on that. There's no reason not to stand up and say something about that. And anybody who sees something like that again, tell me. I will personally call Jeff Birding, and I will make sure he knows. And there is no excuse. The club has already shown that they will take action on these things. So let's root these terrible people out of our fan base, and let's make sure that we support our players. And then just on the back end of that, I'll just say, freaking soccer is back. I can't wait. What was it, Paul? You said months since the last time Lacadia put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, it's been close to 4 months.
It's been forever. What a phenomenal player to watch. So exciting. Kuyo, phenomenal player. And just that whole front three that we saw up there is exciting and dynamic. And I can't wait to see what they do next. So July, baby. Soccer.
Well, it's tough to follow those three final words, and I think you guys put all that great, so I don't need to rehash it. But support our players. Let's keep educating our community, and let's just be better to each other. That's all it is. To echo your thoughts there as well, Bill. Ready for some soccer? Let's just appreciate what we're going to hopefully be able to see. The elevated risks these players are taking. Let's appreciate what they're doing. They're leaving their families for a couple months. So definitely appreciate you guys. We don't know what the next several months is going to hold. Maybe we see 3 games and that's it for 2020. Let's be appreciative, enjoy it, and then let's be safe. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. Subs, you run a great ship here. Appreciate everything you do. Jeff, Bill, Tall Paul, you guys are great. Going to be exciting next month. So for the guys, this is Brian Weigel signing off, and I think my final hallmark, finally after 4 months of trying different things, it's going to go back to the let's be better to each other, folks. Have a good night.